7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the next episode of X-Wingin It. I am here with my good old partners in crime here, good old Darth Biggie Brendan and Indiana Salone Travis, and we are going to obviously talk about the season finale of The Acolyte. But before we get into that, we always want to thank our sponsor, TRG Toys and Collectibles. Make sure you check them out at trgtoys.com for Marvel, Star Wars, you name it. He's got it. Make sure you check them out, trgtoys.com. So, all right, Brendan and Travis, welcome back. I'm glad we're back on here again. I'm back from surgery 16 and on my way to Grievous status here pretty soon, and I'm enjoying it. But let's talk about The Acolyte. So we obviously just finished up this season, and I will say this is probably one of the most, I will say, talked about and most diverse of discussion that I've seen in the Star Wars universe in a long time. And that includes all the new, episodes 8 and all that stuff. And it's just unreal. So before we get into anything, was this the way you thought it was going to end? Was this season the way you thought it was going to be? And what were some of your thoughts going into this last episode? Brendan, we'll start with you there.
All right. I think we were both waiting. I do think the kind of finale and like the end of the season kind of played out mostly kind of as expected. Like we knew someone was going to go to the dark side. Who was it going to be? I think I enjoyed how it ended. I thought the story made sense. I thought we got another episode full of good action. I know we were all kind of, do we really want another flashback episode? It's hard because you're revisiting things, but I thought they did a good job keeping it pretty interesting. And then, yeah, I do think the finale at least wrapped up the season well, gave us some conclusion to all these characters. It didn't go exactly how I expected, but like close enough.
Travis, what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, this series is very difficult to put into a love it category. I didn't hate it. It's kind of right there in the middle where it's like, yeah, I enjoyed the episodes well enough. I feel like there could have been maybe some tighter storytelling in some of the episodes. Maybe instead of 2 flashback episodes, they kind of spaced them out to do the kind of the big reveal that the Jedi were responsible for the Coven, dying off. We kind of all predicted that just based on what they alluded to. I almost wish they could have just done like 1 flashback episode, or maybe in one of the flashback episodes done a small flashback, but then still told more of the current story, because it felt like there was more there. The Osha turning to the dark side because of Khmer, there wasn't enough of an engagement between the two of them to really be like, okay, yeah, she's really starting to fall. It was more like, hey, had a brief conversation and we put the helmet on, then you fly off. It all happened so suddenly. It's almost like maybe like another episode there to kind of help build that up, to help make it feel like a more natural, like, oh, okay, I see why she turned, kind of a thing. But I mean, overall, I didn't hate it. I'm just right there where it was okay, I guess, is where I kind of fall.
Yeah, I'm just at, again, we kind of talked a little bit before the show, and for me, like you said, it's hard for me to put this in a category yet, because I can't decide what I want to do with it in my head. There was a lot of stuff that had some good highs and had some low lows, and to me, it was one of these series that it told a lot of good stuff, because obviously we're at a time before the story that we are used to. So a lot of stuff is going to be new and foreign to us, unless you're, a comic reader like Brendan over here, who's already read all the
a lot of it was very new.
But like there's just stuff in there. Like, I mean, the lightsaber whip was pretty cool, you know, but like, I think we missed, and what got me about this series was they put a lot of Easter eggs and a lot of little things in here, and they didn't connect them the way I thought they were. Like, let's say the lightsaber whip. So obviously, if you look at the back of Quimir, you know that he got, you know, whipped by something. And I'm thinking that whip was the one that left him those scars, you know, but we never really got, we know that he used to be a Jedi, but we never really got that story. And I was kind of
season 2's for.
I know, that's what season 2 is heading that way. But, you know, there's just little things like that. You know, we're looking at a lot of different stuff we're just not used to. Cameos, some Easter eggs in there in the last episode, which was kind of cool, which kind of now makes us want a season 2. We'll get into that as well. But I mean, overall, and again, everybody, I'm going to ruffle feathers. I know everybody starts going crazy as soon as I say this, but you know, I do have it, you know, higher than Andor, just because there was aliens, there was action, my kind of stuff on there. Now, Andor was good, everybody, but this might change after season 2 or after I decide what I really want to do with this. But for now, it's right there, but it's just something that I just can't put my finger on what I want to do with this series yet. So, we'll get into that a little bit, but let's talk about some of the character development. So, obviously, another thing that a lot of people complained about this series was it was very predictable. Probably one of the most predictable Star Wars series that we've seen, other than like obviously Andor. We kind of know where that's heading towards. Yeah. But we knew right away who the bad guy was. We kind of knew right away which things were going. What do you guys think? And then Brendan, I'll start with you again here. I mean, did you like the character development, how we introduced this Acolyte? Because I'm not calling him a Sith yet. You know, I don't think he's at Sith level. But do you like how we kind of got this story with him, or were you expecting some more of him being more on the dark side than this kind of at the end? I don't know what side he was
on. I really like Qamir's character. I mean, when we were first introduced to him, harmless, funny, but like something was off. I think going into the big reveal, everyone kind of knew what was going to be revealed, but they still did it in a way that was so impactful. Like that episode just really kicked. I like that there's depth to the character. Like he's embraced the dark side. He's evil. He's willing to kill. He's ruthless. But there's still a real sense of humanity to him. And like, you don't know that there's shades of gray to the character, but like it hints that maybe there's more to him. There's still depth to him.
Yeah.
So overall, I think he's been a great character. I think Star Wars, especially the movies, suffer from like underdeveloped villains. Mm-hmm. Like Boba Fett, Jango Fett, Phasma. Like, so I think it's been good that we've gotten some development from him. We've gotten some depth. He's an interesting character, and like he's a character that I want to continue to learn more about, both his past and where it goes from here.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think I'm right there with you too, as far as I'm curious to know more about his character and his journey from Vernestra's Padawan to fall into the dark side, and then being on this island, you know, this planet, whatever, you know, wherever they're at here with Plagueis potentially, and just kind of understand how did that happen? Because to me, that's always kind of one of the more interesting things. I mean, if you look at the prequel trilogy was essentially 3 films telling the story of how Anakin Skywalker fell to the dark side. He's already starting there with Osha. We had, 15 minutes of fall to the dark side. So I always find that storytelling interesting. So I definitely, I'm there with Brendan as well, as far as I'd like to know more about this character. The other thing too, while you were talking, I just thought about, and correct if I'm wrong, but we never saw him actually use what I call traditional dark side force powers, correct? Like he didn't force choke anybody. I mean, I know he killed a bunch of people. He snapped necks. He did all that sort of stuff. But he didn't do any. There's no force lightning, obviously. But I know the traditional dark side powers, we never actually saw him use those. I don't think it mattered necessarily. I just thought that was curious now that I was thinking about it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then, like, I was gonna say, we never saw like Kylo himself, did he force choke maybe in there? But like, I guess I think we've seen different powers from each sort of Sith. So like, I think some of those classic, it's just, I mean, Darth Vader liked force choking people. Plagueis was big. Dooku was big with the lightning. So I think like the mind wipe feels like that had to tap into the dark side more than just kind of the suggestion powers of the Jedi or whatnot. But outside of that, I don't know that there's any of those force, kind of the classic ones.
Yeah, he's one of these characters that it was obviously like as soon as he started talking and the way things were going, we knew that he was going to be the dude. And once everything was going, but what I find very interesting with this is I don't know if we get that Easter egg, Plagueis is there, so we get the Easter egg of him, but I don't think that he realizes that he's there, if that makes sense to everybody. I don't know if he's the one pulling the strings yet. I think this is part of the setup for things, because as a Sith Lord, at the end, you would think that he would see that as a weakness, the way he was treating Osha and everybody else. Because, I mean, look at, Vader in the comics and look at Palpatine. Like, the stuff Palpatine did to Vader in the comics, like, oh my gosh, if you did that in a movie, like, it would be pretty messed up. But it just, to me, he was, he kind of grew on me a little bit at the end. And then we'll talk about the ending later. But it just was one of these characters that, his fight scenes were pretty cool. And like when he did that, when his lightsaber came apart and he did like the 3-hole punch and the Padawan and everything else. And just overall, I really kind of like his development. Like you said, this was a good, and this is what I like. We had a good story to tell with him, and we had action and, everything else with him too. And that I can get into instead of sitting there building parts in the Death Star factory, making parts for, on that. But let's talk about the one character, man, that got the raw end of the stick, man. And let's talk about Sal a little bit. Wow. So we definitely have a new look on Jedi after this series. And it was I shocked that it ended the way it did for him? Kind of not, after seeing how secretive things were being. But man, he just, now that he's going to be known as kind of like the bad guy who turned, unless someone actually comes out. So that little Basil better be coming out and be telling the truth here soon, because our boy Sal's getting the raw and does, like I said, the stick here. But I mean, were you guys shocked with that, Travis? I'll start with you on this one. Wow, I couldn't.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it was, to the degree it went, no. I think we talked about previously, I think knowing that there was something more that he had done in the past had kind of been alluded to. So we sort of knew, hey, something happened back on Bryndock with the Forward Jedi originally. So we knew he was, he wasn't squeaky clean. For him to kind of get thrown under the bus though, completely, was definitely a shock. Because he was a cool character. I enjoyed his character kind of throughout. But yeah, he definitely got shafted there at the end. This kind of the scapegoat for everything that went wrong was because of him. Yeah. And and I'm kind of on the fence again. I struggle with this series so much. One of the things I'm on the fence about with this one too is I like when the Jedi aren't necessarily viewed as like this shining bastion of like perfect, and they have issues. And I thought the prequel series and the Clone Wars animated series did a really good job of kind of walking the line between, hey, there's good things, but there's sometimes arrogant. I guess this series kind of almost went too far for me on like, hey, they lie all the time and they're a terrible, like they were almost like too hard and almost too critical on the whole Jedi Order kind of throughout on this one, where it almost felt so much different than like the more hopeful side of like normal Star Wars sort of stuff, to where it's like the Jedi are still good, even though there's some bad things to them. They're still trying to do the right things. This one was just like, no, these people are awful.
Yeah.
I don't know that I'd go that far. I think what's interesting about it is I think they think they're doing the right thing. Or I think they think what they're doing is for the greater good.
Yeah.
I mean, that was Soul's whole thing. Like, I meant well. I was trying to save you. I did it because I thought you were in danger. And you're just kind of sitting back and like, it's once again, I think the big theme is arrogance. They feel like they are entitled to make those decisions themselves.
Yeah.
And it's kind of their connection to the Force, and the Force itself. They use it almost to justify like character flaws, but as long as they turn back to the light or they turn back to the Force, a lot is able to be forgiven. That's a theme that once in the books, the most recent book kind of hits on it a lot. So I think it's consistent, but it's not like, yeah, I think it is one of those things where they think they're doing what they do for the greater good. But like what? The road to hell is paved with good intentions or whatnot. Like, we can see that what they're doing is causing a lot of trouble, and like they're bending the rules. They're not standing up to the ideals that they claim to be.
Yeah.
And they want people to think that they are. And I like that there's that gray and that kind of conflict there. And I think we saw a lot of that with Soul. I think he knew
Soul
what he
had
did
that-
was wrong, but he could never admit it because he did it for the right reasons.
Right. Soul is, like I said, that Qui-Gon. He to me, he reminds me a lot of Qui-Gon in his beliefs. You know, he was like for example, Qui-Gon was going to train Anakin. Like, it was going to, I mean, no matter what, he was going to do this. And Soul kind of had that same philosophy, like, hey, this is the right thing to do. I'm doing it. Like you said, it's just interesting that how quickly some of the Jedi want to cover things up, and it makes sense in a way because, I mean, you got these Force users and they don't want to let people know that, hey, there's a rogue Jedi out there that has these Force powers that can all of a sudden jeopardize the whole city and destroy everything. And, you know, and I can see the whole story with this. So this is, like I said, this is interesting because we're used to, I mean, if you think about the Star Wars we got, pretty much the Jedi were wiped out until we got the Clone Wars and then things like that. So we're seeing it again in our Star Wars lifespan here. We're seeing another new side of things that we're obviously not used to. Now, another new thing that we saw that I kind of enjoyed and I thought was kind of neat, and we talked about this a little bit, was we actually finally got to see the bleeding of the Kyber crystal. Now, this has sparked a lot of controversy online, and I kind of sit back and laugh a little bit. We talked about this as well. And, you know, we kind of came to the conclusion that right now there is no, you know, blue book or manual saying how to actually, you know, bleed a Kyber crystal, but it actually was pretty cool about it. But Brendan, we'll have to let you talk about, because you answered this a little bit ago. We're seeing a lot of people argue about, hey, well, Anakin's didn't turn when he became, you know, bad and everything. And I don't understand that, because he became a Sith. I like your take on this. So if you kind of explain what you explained to us before the show, Brendan, what you thought on that.
So there's not a lot out there on how to bleed a Kyber crystal in what's current canon. We see Kylo Ren do it in one of the comics. It does involve him touching it to himself. There's blood involved. But like, one of the things that was kind of introduced to us was this physical contact.
Yeah.
And I think I'm not 100% sure, but I think it's been established. Part of it is like, it's someone else's crystal. You're taking a crystal that's been good in the light, you're stealing it and you're turning it. I don't know that that's 100% one of the requirements, but that's kind of, so I think a lot of people are like, oh, this never would have happened. And I think they were very intentional in this show, multiple times showing the lightsaber broke. There was physical contact between Osha and the crystal. There was blood touching the crystal. And that's kind of what's been established that's needed. And it is oh, well, the way Kylo did it's different than the way she did it. It took him a lot of effort. I think kind of how we were talking about what are dark side force powers. All Jedi kind of interact with the Force in different ways,
Yep.
have things that they're good at and bad at. Her ability to kind of do it subconsciously, or it's the fact that like it was the moment when she was turning to the dark side makes it even more powerful in the Force, or she was kind of making that ultimate, she was killing someone with the Force as she was touching it. So we don't know 100, like you said, there's no dummy's guide to bleeding a crystal, but I think they took what's been established as canon and did a good job bringing it into the series and giving us what I think is a really cool moment. And it doesn't tie 1-to-1 with exactly what happened in episode 3. So I mean, people are going to be angry. People came into this deciding they wanted to be angry. So I think the thing that bothers me is when they're like, the show writers don't know Star Wars. The show writers didn't do the research. They're just making stuff up as they go. Like you can see the people who put this together are fans of Star Wars. Like they went in and read the comics and did it. They brought small things in from Legends and incorporated them well. So I think it was a super cool moment. I liked seeing it. Like it gave me chills. So I
agree. I agree with that. And I mean, Travis, you talked a little bit about it too. And it just, did you like that scene? Was it something that really kind of grabbed you, or did you think it was, I got Justin over here on Instagram right now. If they're going to bleed the crystal so easily when it took Vader multiple attempts from the Vader comics. And again, I think Brendan kind of hit on that a little bit. But I mean, what did you think? Did you think it was too overboard, or was it just right? Or did you like how it went on that?
I didn't, man, I'm so in the middle on every question you asked me about this show. Cause I didn't hate it, but I didn't like it, I guess, as much as Brendan did. And it was almost because it felt, and it kind of goes back to what I mentioned earlier about Osha's turn to the dark side, feeling like it just happened sort of over half an episode, towards the end of episode 6, and then in episode 6, and then there in episode 8. I just didn't have enough. Like I feel like she didn't earn, I guess, turning to the dark side. I didn't see that progression, and for me, the crystal changing colors, I would say casual fans probably had no idea. Maybe that was intentional. Like, bleeding the kyber crystal is even a thing. It almost felt like they just said, like, the writers to me, like, hey, she's turning to this dark side, so make the lightsaber turn red because the bad guys always have a red lightsaber. So it's almost like they just did the color change to try to signify that, as opposed to actually showing the bleeding of the crystal. So I guess that's why I was hoping there had been more of a focused effort, like an intentional thing behind, in next season, she has to actually bleed the crystal and do more to kind of fully turn, as opposed to being just, oh, you killed Saul, so now you've instantly turned red. So I mean, it was cool visually. It was a cool thing visually. I'm not going to complain and whine about it and say like, oh, it's breaks canon, because to Brendan's point, it's not super well established. It's just a thing that can happen to the crystals. So I won't get too hung up on it.
So with the crystals and with the power that we saw from Osha to May, now this is one thing that I find very interesting with the storyline. And I don't know, again, this is where I'm kind of left hanging. Where's this going to go? Because we obviously know that there's something special about this planet. And we're thinking that somehow life from the Force can be created at this planet. And, you have this Virgins in the Force, which is obviously Osha and May. Now, I'm seeing a lot of stuff out there, and there's some theories that I've kind of picked up quickly today that I looked at and stuff, and because I really don't know what theory I'm going with on this yet. I just don't know. But, there's stuff where they might be connected with Mortis, where they, where they could have been the mother that was separated the dark and the light. There's all kinds of different stories out there with this, but are we going to a path? And again, I've asked this before on some other episodes too. is Osha and May pretty much the most powerful thing that we have in the Force right now? Is it, what kind of shows how Anakin was created? I don't know. Like, I'm kind of stumped because we don't have a lot of material with this. And Brendan, if I'm wrong, let me know, especially with the comics and the books and everything. What are your thoughts on these two with their connection? Because obviously I feel like when Osha got mad and found out the truth, that she took the hatred kind of from May to double her power to the dark side. Like, it just, and all of a sudden that's when everything started going. And then she started, the Force choke and everything else. I don't know, Brendan, like with the books and stuff, was there anything hinting kind of towards this, or what? I mean, are we still kind of just, we don't know what the heck's going on?
We're still learning. I think divergence is just, there's something there that allowed them to create life. I kind of got the sense that Osha and May were like a result of the divergence and maybe not the divergence themselves. But and I think so. Yeah, so I think this is something new, and they're still exploring and explaining it to us.
Yeah, because it's just again, always had to default to Brendan here on his comic and book knowledge.
Yeah.
Because I mean, a virgins in the Fourth, is that something that we've explored or talked about? I mean, Mortis is a whole kind of a thing like that, but is that something that's very common, or is this sort of a new thing they've sort of introduced?
I mean, we really haven't got introduced to much of that anywhere. I mean, the three biggest areas that we saw the biggest Force difference, obviously the planet of Mortis, where they're able to use the Force to manipulate to see if you are the chosen one or whatever, you're going through that route. And then we had Kylo and Rey, who were the Druid or whatever in the Force, where they could like grab each other's necklaces and helmets and stuff through the Force. And then we had this one. That's really the three things that stand out to me that were kind of, unless there's something else that I'm missing. I really can't think of any other real crazy stuff except for maybe the training on Dagobah when Yoda was.
Yeah, I was gonna say, so like the divergence is, I definitely not just looking at Wikipedia to learn as I go. It's very much tied to like the physical place. It's a location where the Force is strong. Like the cave on Dagobah, I think they say it's when they talk about a nexus of the Force and things like that. I think the cave that Rey went into in
the mirrored thing on Octu or whatever. Okay,
like that, where the Force is especially strong and does interesting and unique things. Yep. So I don't know, all virgences wouldn't create life, and some are dark side, light side, whatnot. So I think it's more that this is a location where the Force is especially strong and allows crazy and interesting things to happen. In this case, it somehow created life on the planet and somehow was used in the creation of Osha and May.
Yeah. And I'm sure that tree, I feel like that tree is supposed to be some sort of, physical, almost like beacon point of like, hey, here's where the Virgins actually is the strongest. They kept always being drawn back to that tree.
Again, Brendan, and the Poe Dameron comics, wasn't there was a Force tree that was talked about in the Poe Dameron comics, wasn't there?
Possibly.
For some reason, the Force tree it keeps popping up like in my head for like a couple of times. That's popped out in a couple of the comics. Plus, I think there was a Force tree in the Tales of the Jedi as well with the Dooku episode. But yeah, it's just there's something that tree obviously has some kind of meaning to it. That's there as well. But who knows? Like I said, we're all looking at new stuff. It's you can tell that a lot of us are still trying to process it. Like, even though it's been out for a while, we're still kind of putting our fingers on it. And if you're watching, we like to know your thoughts too. What were your thoughts on this series? What, so far, everything we talked to. But let's talk about something that obviously everybody was waiting for. We were waiting for something to happen. Brendan, you talk about Legends and everything else coming in. And obviously we get this little creeper poking out of the caves there. It's not a Jawa. But obviously, we got Darth Plagueis here. And at least we think it is. I mean, technically it hasn't been confirmed. But obviously that's who it is. But do you guys think, and Travis, I'll start with you on this one. Do you think that they actually know he's there? Like, do you think that Quamir knows that, Plagueis is around? Or do you think he's just trying to be his own dark side acolyte, where Plagueis is kind of like maybe like the Emperor, kind of knowing the pieces are falling in place for him to make his appearance as a Sith, like the Return of the Sith? What do you think on those?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I'd like to think that he's just observing, and part of my reason for that is, like we talked about with Khmer / the Stranger that they referred to him as well. He doesn't feel Sithy enough, I guess, to be like an actual Sith apprentice. Like he almost feels like he's just kind of a dark side user, but he's not fully like
he doesn't have the eyes,
or he doesn't have the eyes. I feel like he hasn't completely turned. So kind of the way I view it is, maybe Plagueis is out kind of, running the scout team here, looking for potential apprentices to take, obviously, before he takes on a kid from Naboo, Palpatine, sometime in the future. Because I'm trying to think timeline-wise how old Plagueis is, or how long he lives, and how how it all kind of shakes out, and when Palpatine shows up in his is his apprentice. But I don't think they know he's there. I feel like he's just kind of observing and kind of stalking them, like the little creeper that he is there in that that picture.
I think I would be surprised if he hasn't had some interaction with Khmer. Like you said, is that he's been lurking in the background. I mean, in the sense that we saw Khmer act like the friendly pal of May, and she didn't really know who he was the whole time. Like, maybe Plagueis has done that at some point to Khmer, like pushed him in a certain direction or guided him in some way. But yeah, I don't. It does feel like a lot of Khmer's actions are his own. I don't think he was instructed to go out and do what he's done.
Yeah.
I think maybe, and it could very much be that he kind of has explored the dark side on his own. When he says your kind would call me Sith, he's not really Sith, but he's fallen to the dark side and he doesn't know what else to call himself.
Yeah.
And he kind of was like, he took the name on because he's fallen, but not because of everything that we know of, or the lore we know of, that makes a Sith a Sith.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, it could just be he sensed the dark side and has come to investigate. But I'm intrigued by him being there. I wouldn't be surprised if he's had his fingers in the pudding and like he's affected. He's pulling some strings in the background. But
could this potentially be where Plagueis is still the apprentice, so he's looking for his own apprentice before he tries to overthrow his master and become top dog?
Yeah, he felt the dark side and he came hunting for his apprentice. Yeah. So there's a lot. There's a lot of potential there.
Yeah, there's a lot of potential because we really don't have a lot. And obviously, again, there's not a lot on him. All we know is that he was able to master how to save lives but not protect his own. And good old Palpatine, popped him. But it's definitely. I know a lot of people got excited about it, and I did a little bit just because it's neat to see some of these characters get kind of thrown in a little bit. And obviously now because of this, I want a season 2 because I want to see what they do with the guy, what's going to go on with that. So, but let's talk about another cameo. We've been waiting for this one the whole season. And obviously it was only a couple seconds, but it was fun. And obviously we saw Master Yoda. So this is pretty interesting because first of all, obviously he's about 700-800 years old here. He looks just as old as he does when we met him in A New Hope. But
it's the same.
I think this is interesting because I'm actually kind of torn because now I got this thought about Yoda going, man, was he hiding this the whole time too? Like, he kind of knew and thought maybe it was going to go away, and and then all of a sudden, the whole Anakin pops in. He kind of knew that was going to be the opening gate, but obviously we know she's getting ready to tell him the story about Saul being, the bad guy, and obviously it ends on that. But I mean, would you be shocked now to know that Yoda might know that this was all hidden and kind of brushed under the rug?
Yeah, I guess my take was I thought she was coming to tell him some of or more of the truth, not the lie. I think what I've kind of what I find interesting about Yoda is that like the story we've seen of him has kind of been a failure.
Yeah,
he's always talked about it being the most powerful, the smartest, or like very well connected to the Force, but all this bad stuff happened under his watch, and he just like comes across sometimes as not very like politically savvy, or just being a good Jedi or being strong in the Force doesn't make you a good leader.
Yeah.
So I think like he's held up as like this paragon, but so I think it will be interesting to see what it is she actually tells him, and what he knows. I don't think we're ever gonna get, and I would be upset if we got like Yoda as a spy master, someone who's doing stuff in the dark, because that's never been his character.
Yeah.
I guess in the High Republic we do see him make like some questionable judgment calls. But it was his failing was believing in the light of someone or believing in their good too much, or their ability to be redeemed. Okay. So, yeah, I don't think Vernestra's pulling him down into her world of lies and deceit, but I'm guessing he knows enough or is aware of what's going on with Kamir or something that she feels the need to tell him the truth. And I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what more we get of him.
And if you look at things too, and there's things that kind of like pop in my head now as we go, and we're thinking more about the canon timelines of things. I mean, even when they talk about the Sith being extinct for a millennium, even Yoda makes the comment, the dark side can cloud your visions and stuff like that. So maybe he knows, like, okay, it's out there. It's been clouding. This has been going on for some time now. And now it's getting ready to hit the fan. Mm-hmm. So there's definitely a lot of what ifs about it. I really hope we don't. I really don't want to get too much into Yoda into this series, because we've already had a lot of Yoda story. And again, it's not going to be the same with either Tom Kane or Frank. Obviously, he can't voice him anymore, and it's kind of like let that character rest and let's go on to the next story there. But let's talk about the ending overall here, and we ended it with another Star Wars. Like, I'm going to guess it's a romance. Were you guys kind of caught off guard with that, or is it something that like you? I mean, who knows? Maybe it's Palpatine's new parents. I don't know. But but I kind of was hoping. I don't want to see a Sith love affair. I want to see these acolytes going towards the dark side. That's kind of what I was hoping for. And now they're kind of like, I don't know. It just kind of took that.
Yeah, it felt weird. It seemed weird that I didn't really get that feeling through their interactions that there was that kind of dynamic, and then just all of a sudden, like, oh, we're just gonna hold hands and watch the sunset as we think about all the people we've murdered. It definitely, hopefully it doesn't turn into that going forward, because that would be, I don't know, just not something I'm super interested, I guess, in seeing. I think kind of detracts away from the master apprentice potential acolyte sort of relationship. It turns into like a romantic thing, being the reason why she turned, like, oh, I was in love with you, that's why I became dark side. I don't know, it'd be kind of weird. I guess
anybody who's watching right now, if you're hearing a weird sound that sounds like the lizard that Obi-Wan was riding back in the prequels, it's my dog sleeping right now. So she's making these noises that sound just like it, so I apologize if you hear that right now. But go ahead, Brendan. What were your thoughts on were you expecting this relationship thing to blossom, or was it kind of, do you think it kind of took away from the darkness that we saw going into the end of this?
So yeah, I didn't really expect it or need it or want it. But I think if we think of these two as not actually being Sith, and we kind of look at what their downfall has been, it's their emotions. Like
Yeah.
she says she couldn't become a Jedi because she couldn't let go of her hate for her sister, her fear and loss and anger. Like she had those emotions this entire time, and it all came to head with her killing Soul. So if kind of their I don't if their love isn't love, but it's like kind of a result of their like passion or anger or like I don't know. I can kind of see it, but
Yeah.
I also was kind of expecting I think the relationship thing, it makes them feel more like partners or like equals going into this and exploring whatever comes next. Whereas I felt like I want an acolyte. It just felt like he was looking for a student. So I
Yeah.
think part of it feels weird when you're like master student relationship and then we might be a thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I
that's
just
frowned upon. So
yeah, I don't know. The Sith never really said about about attachments like the Jedi, but
yeah.
it's just one of those things that kind of caught me off guard, and it kind of like I like the evilness that came out of it because like, everyone who knows like I want like a dark side story. I like I'm a fan of The Empire Strikes Back because it ended on a bad note. I like and those kind of things are interesting because you can rebound from it, but you also see the things coming from the other side of the coin. And then it just kind of went, now they're are they really going to go that far down the dark side now? It's kind of like you said earlier, they show, one of their weaknesses is they show a lot of compassion. And if that was earlier Vader from the comics, as obviously we know Vader was very conflicted all the way through the comics. I got through most of those comics there, but Vader would redeem himself to Palpatine by killing or doing whatever he needed to do. But here I just don't see. It looks like it's just kind of they redeem themselves and kind of like going to be like in a way a gray Jedi, and like I don't know. It's just kind of it just didn't feel Sithy to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I guess it could potentially, if they go with that angle and at some point one has to turn on the other, maybe it makes that betrayal more impactful because they're starting to build up that they actually do care for one another. But then, Kamir was never in it for the love; he was in it for the power. That something there, I guess, could grow in season 2 if they go that way. But yeah, I mean, I hope it doesn't turn into a Bonnie and Clyde sort of Sith acolyte love story, going rampaging around the galaxy. Because I just didn't really.
I don't know. That sounded really awesome.
Actually, the way you just kind of said it,
Bonnie and Clyde, let's go rob some banks and murder people.
I just kind of flopped there.
Yeah, there we go.
They should hire you for season 2. Let's go.
Right, yeah, my contact information, you can find it right there on the website.
So here's the main question for everybody tonight is do we need a second season or are we good at where we're at?
I really want a second season. I think we've kind of hit on it. I think one of the big weaknesses of season 1 was the storytelling needed to be tighter. I kind of forgive it in the fact that they're introducing a new setting. They're introducing all new characters. They just they spent too long setting the stage.
Yeah.
And it slowed it down a bit.
Mm-hmm.
My hope is now we've got the characters, we've got the lore established. They're at a place. If we get a second season, I want them to just jump right into it. And I think it could make for a really good second season. Like I want to know what ends up happening to the characters. I want to know Vernestra's backstory. I think anyone who read the books realizes the Vernestra we had in the books compared to the Vernestra now is worlds different. So like it's been 100 years. What happened to get her kind of into the morally gray side? And like I think Kamir's compelling. I don't hate OSHA. And we got Plagueis and Yoda in there, so
Yeah.
I would love a season 2.
Yeah, I think I'm there too. I think about halfway through this season, I was probably like, I don't really care if there's a second season, but I think they did, to your point, laid enough foundational groundwork to build upon that I would be curious to see what they would do without having to establish the twin thing and they're, came from a virgin. So, we don't have to worry about all that kind of stuff now. We can just get right into it and progress the story without kind of the baggage. Because I think that's where say slipped a little bit, was trying to tell the story, but then set the foundation. It didn't necessarily gel and flow well together. It felt kind of disjointed at times. So if they can avoid that and just hit the ground running season 2, I say go for it. Give another 8 episodes and see what they can do with it.
Before I answer that question, something just popped in my head too. I can't figure out Basil. Like,
oh yeah, he could have saved everybody if it was let Soul take out May in the asteroid field thing. But no, he was somehow trying to protect her all of a sudden, even though he was trying to tell Soul that's not really OSHA. So I can't figure out Basil. I can't. Whose side is he on?
Well, I kind of just felt like he was almost doing the right thing all the time despite stuff.
Was like Jiminy Cricket? He's just a conscious out there. He's force conscious.
Yeah, like Soul shooting down May would have been wrong. And like when he saw it happening, he was like, no, like we don't do that, or like I'm not cool with this. And he stepped up, and then he ran and hid. And then like he was the one who turned the transponder on. Like he kind of drove. I guess he was Soul's Jiminy Cricket.
Yeah, he was kind of like the.
I mean, Basil's a contracted employee. He should be doing what he's told, not going rogue like that. He should be,
but who's paying his contract?
Yeah,
the Jedi Order.
Obviously not Soul.
Yeah, that was just definitely. I was so confused by him for one point. I'm like, what is okay? But now I kind of see like where he was going with things. But at the same time, it's like maybe he knows more than what we still know yet. Too. Maybe he's kind of like
nobody knows what he knows, because I think the only one who could talk to him got his neck snapped, right?
Yeah, you're the only one that took that language in school.
Yeah. We'll have to see like shows up New York with his head like twisted, like waving at Basil, and then they finally tell there. But yeah, I do think we need a season 2, just because of the little Easter eggs that we got, and it's still kind of, everyone's gonna hate this, push us towards the Skywalker era, because we now have a gap of 100 years in between that there's still a lot of story to tell. So that's
but we're already filling it with Yoda and Cal Moonday and Darth Plagueis, eventually Palpatine.
So, but
sometime please just get so far removed away from the existing stuff you can just tell new things without having to worry about connecting to other stuff. That's my hope. Someday Lucasfilm do it.
I just don't think it'll ever happen. I as much as I say it, we want something completely new and something untouched. But even if we go like even Ahsoka's come the closest to set us up for something like that, with taking us to a new galaxy and some new stories out in that area. But at the same time, it's still connected. So if we start doing stories from out there, it's kind of because it was connected with, like 9 degrees of Anakin Skywalker. Everything keeps coming back, to things like that. I mean, I like this because it's not, even though it's going towards the Skywalker saga, it's not the Skywalker saga. It's something different that we looked at. Something, we're seeing the Jedi at its highest, getting ready to go down to its lowest. So that I do think that's kind of interesting. Again, that's like with me, like in, the tip the scale, the dark side a little bit in the storytelling. But overall, season 2, I think we need it. So hopefully they do that. But again, they kind of left us hanging because we still need a second Solo. I'll still to this day will argue like we need a second Solo the way that ended, and we'll never get it. So with that, tonight we're going to call it a night, everybody. The Acolyte, it's done. So I'm anxious to see some of your thoughts in the comments and talk to you guys later on about it after it sinks in a little bit more. But Brendan, Travis, thanks a lot again for talking about this. It's been a bumpy and crazy season. And I think what we got next, Skeleton Crew, is that?
Yeah, Skeleton Crew. Yeah.
The big news. So the comics are about. They just announced in October the comics are jumping to post Return of the Jedi.
Okay. Yeah, they're doing
so we're gonna get some. We're gonna get. It sounds like leading up to the Battle of Jakku. So
yeah, I think it's
I'm
released
excited that we're jumping into a new-ish era of storytelling. I think.
Yeah,
not out of the Skywalker saga, but it's still, I'm excited about that.
It'll be good to get some new stories on there, and then and picking up things like that. And obviously, we've got probably there was a job posting for some animated stuff for Lucasfilm, so we might be seeing a new animated film soon. We got the Mandalorian Grogu movie coming up. Was it next year or the year after?
Is the Lego show out before Skeleton Crew?
I forgot what the Lego.
The What If
Galaxy,
thing,
Star Wars What If.
Jar Jar, come on, man!
I'm excited for that one.
Have you seen the Lego sets that they've announced so far?
And I'm guessing we'll get probably some more Skeleton Crew news later this week, right? San Diego Comic-Con is this?
Yeah, probably. Yeah. I know a lot of Marvel news is coming out. I didn't see a lot of rumors on Star Wars stuff yet. But I've lately, with panels for Star Wars, I've kind of just take that with a grain of salt because it seems like every time they announce a bunch of stuff, then none of it
never happens.
So, I mean, obviously, we're still waiting for the Lando. We're still waiting for, Knights of the Republic. We're still waiting for this. So I really kind of lost hope on that one there. But we'll see, way things go.
If they give us news about a show we know is done filming, I'll believe that.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, we can see like a teaser trailer. We'll believe it's coming.
Until then, it's all bullshit.
Yeah, my big thing is I just want something in the movie theaters again. To me, Star Wars, nothing replaces it. You can have Disney Plus, we can get all the Star Wars, stuff fed to us, but there's still something about going to the movie theater, seeing that scroll go across the screen, and the next thing you know, a Star Destroyer or something's flying over your head. And
you just need to keep redoing the old ones in the theater.
Yep, I'm good with that. I mean, during COVID, I think I saw Empire like 7 times, when they re-released that and everything. So, again, everybody, thank you so much tonight. Thank you for watching on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook. We'll be back again next week. We're going to be talking a lot more Star Wars. We got a lot of things coming up, especially after San Diego. I'm sure there's going to be some new collectibles announced. Hasbro is going to be there. There's all kinds of stuff getting ready to roll out. Again, can't wait to talk to you all then about that. And until then, everybody, Brandon, Travis, thank you so much. And anything else before we sign off tonight?
Let's get out of here.
All right. Sounds good. All right. Until next time, everybody, may the force be with you.